This conference will now be recorded.
And hello and welcome everyone to the Cataloging Interest Group meeting for November 2021. I am Jennifer Weston. I'm the facilitator of this group. And on behalf of the organizing committee, we welcome you to today's call. The members of the organizing committee are listed there at the top of the agenda as always, as is a link to our wiki if you're looking for more information. And for anyone that is new to this call or to the meeting with the cataloging group, we welcome you especially. Our agenda that you see that was shared just an email today will be updated with notes as we go along and immediately after this call. They are shared on the wiki or will be shared on the wiki this afternoon after our call so that you'll have access to our notes immediately. And the recording of this session is also posted usually within 24, 48 hours. And I'll try to remember this month to send a note out to the group when I have updated the recording, but the recordings are also stored on the wiki. In general, the microphones are muted, but feel free if you have a question to unmute yourself and ask that question or put a note into chat. We'll be monitoring that as we go along. I have just a brief agenda listed here before we jump into the full agenda. As usual, just do our welcome general updates, which is what we're doing now, talk a little about community activity. And then our program for today is Andrea is going to be providing highlights from new releases. And oh my goodness, there are so many great things in the new releases that came out very recently in 3.6.5, 3.7.2, and 3.8. So she's got time to hit some of those that will affect the lives of catalogers. And we do encourage you to read the release notes because there's a lot to take in each one of those releases, the point releases and then the new 3.8. That said, let me go through just a few announcements before I turn things over to Andrea. Our name change, I sent out a message, I guess it was last week, maybe the week before, earlier this month, about our name change. Our organizing committee met and we've decided that the organizing working group is something that we've been using for a while now. It's really not quite fully reflective of what we are. So we want to become a cataloging interest group instead, like so many of the other Evergreen groups are, because we really want to make sure that people can feel welcome in joining us. You don't have to be a cataloger. As long as you're interested in cataloging or cataloger topics, we invite you to participate. Also, we invite you to participate in not expecting to have to work during the hour that you're here or afterwards. We really do believe in just sharing information and getting feedback from the cataloging group. So with that name change effective this month, we are pleased to start inviting more people into our group and to sharing information perhaps in a little wider capacity. Also, if you are interested in joining the organizing committee, we are looking for a few additional volunteers. As we said, this group, again, is here just to bring information to the cataloger community, like the Cataloging Interest Group monthly meetings. It's also to facilitate the sharing of information and then to share your own experiences. We want to make sure that we're reflecting a wide variety of libraries too, so you can look at the list of names at the top of the agenda here of those people that are on the organizing committee already and see if you belong to a library that you don't feel is represented. Please consider volunteering. And if you'd like to volunteer, just email me or email anybody on the organizing committee, and we will happily invite you along. We do not meet regularly. We communicate through email for the most part. We will hold, I'll say quarterly, but we really probably get together 3 times a year just via GoToMeeting. So it's not particularly onerous to add another meeting to a monthly schedule or anything like that. Really, we just communicate through email for the most part. That's it. That's the extent of my welcome and announcements about the group. I do have links here to Evergreen release notes. This is typically where we would talk about any updates, but since this is the program for today, I'm going to skip over this other than to point out that you do have links to release notes here, the 3.8 release notes that came out November 5th. The tabular release notes are updated. These are ones that we maintain as a group, and I updated them with each of the new releases in November. And if you're not familiar with those, we encourage you to take a look at those. The tabular release notes simply has a tab for each version of the Evergreen releases. So 3.5 has its tab and 3.6 and has its own tab, etc. So we invite you to take a look there. The tabular release notes also have links out to each of the Launchpad bugs that are reflected by the features and fixes that are released. And again, there is your link to the latest releases on the wiki. We maintain that as well. So if you're just wondering to yourself in the midst of crazy days, what version are we actually on now? That's a good place to find out. The latest releases, the page on our wiki will provide you with that information. And then here's the update for where we are currently. And again, Andrea's going to go through the highlights from those. So we'll skip that, other than to also say there's a link to the Evergreen official documentation as always. And as I'm skipping along rather merrily, I'd like to point out that the year in the review, because we're not meeting in December, and that's worth repeating, I put that in my message that went out earlier this month, but we will not meet in December. We normally publish our annual summary of the Evergreen Catalogers year in review, either at our December meeting or our January meeting. It's typically just a list of programs and activities that kind of brings everything together in one place for you to have as a document if you want to share internally with your colleagues, or even as part of your own year-end review of the kinds of work you've been involved in. So if you have anything you would like to highlight in this year's summary, just let us know. I'll be putting that together and distributing it in December, even though we won't meet formally in December. We also have an announcement from the Community Spotlight group. This is the Outreach Committee. They've actually an announcement from the Outreach Committee about the Community Spotlight. We're always looking for nominations for the Community Spotlight. Anybody that you're recognizing that's gone above and beyond for the Evergreen community, we encourage you to let the Outreach Committee know. There's a nomination form there, and the Outreach Committee reviews your nominations, and they now update quarterly the announcement about who that quarter's Community Spotlight is, just to say thank you and to recognize the work of people in our community. And come to the point where we talk about the various other interest groups in the Evergreen community, to where we highlight the works of others. We are always excited. I always feel like this should be part of the celebrations, because the work that all these interest groups are doing is worth celebrating. I've got, as usual, links there to each of the interest groups and their next meetings and what their regular meeting schedule is. So I will pause as usual to see if anybody from any of these other interest groups has anything they want to highlight or to make an announcement about to the cataloger group. Okay. And I think because we're meeting a little later this month, most all the other interest groups have already met. So all the meetings that are coming up are in December. And I would just say watch their various group mailing list for any changes in schedules. I will add from the documentation interest group, we talked about this last month and continue talking about it after the first of the year, I'm sure, that the documentation interest group is starting a full review of the current Evergreen documentation to look at what might be missing, what might be out of date, what kind of screenshots might need updating, or what things perhaps just aren't documented at all that need to be documented. And we absolutely need cataloger review of that. So if you're interested, again, you can let me know or let Debbie Lukenbill know. She's the facilitator of the documentation interest group. And her information can be found there at the DIG channel as well. The link over to documentation interest group. With the Launchpad bugs, again, here sometimes we stop and we talk about specific Launchpad bugs. We're not going to do that today, other than just to remind people, as of October, some of the tagging has changed on there, thanks to Taryn, who took that to the developers group. And we've got a full list there. So if you're looking for specific bugs, they may have changed so that now we have cataloger in front of, so cat in front of most of those makes it much easier to find. And I'll just leave that to you to look at in your own time. As always, I have links there, just helpful links if you want to look at some of the bugs that are out there for cataloging, especially look to those new bugs to see what's out there. Yeah, and Taryn makes a good note there in chat. Quite a few of you that are here today and some others that aren't helped make the transition real in Launchpad went in and changed those tags so that we could have the newer ones that make it so much easier to use. So we do appreciate the work of everybody who helped with that. I also want to celebrate that the Angular Cat blocker has gone away. All of those bugs were resolved and that tag is now deprecated and it is no more. So a couple of different things to celebrate there. And I did go through this rather quickly, so I'm going to pass this over to Andrea with one last intro. I will remind folks that the community demo servers are available to anyone that wants to check out any of these things Andrea will be talking about. They're updated with 3.8.0 is now available. And if you want to see the full list of all the Launchpad bugs, features, and fixes that are included in each of these different releases, including the point releases, I've provided them there for you as well. That said, I will turn things over to you, Andrea, as soon as I find yours. There you are. It should all be yours now.
Great. Let me get my screen share set up here. We want, oh, there we go. Okay. All right. So you all should be looking at my first slide here. And I have a few slides, and then I'm also going to bounce out and do a couple things in a demo. So welcome to the new feature review. There is, as Jennifer said, a lot of really good stuff. I'm going to briefly touch on 3.8.0, but because last time y'all had said you're more interested in the point releases, since most of you are a couple upgrades away from 3.8, I will focus a little bit more on the point releases. I'm not gonna have time to demo everything, but there's a ton of links and stuff in these slides, and I will make sure that Jennifer gets a public link to the slides to add to the notes. So first up, in general, these are just the documentation and release notes for each of the releases, as well as the tabular release notes and the community 3.8 demo server that Jennifer mentioned. So first up is the Angular volume copy editor. This is the big cataloger feature in 3.8. Obviously, a lot of the people in this group gave really valuable feedback to Bill Erickson, who is the primary developer of this, early on in this process. So this is, I've listed here some of the key features, as well as the things to be aware of in this interface. One thing I want to call attention to is that this interface does need some documentation. So if there's any of you who have been considering getting involved with Dig, this is a great entry point because there is a 3.8 demo server up and available, and you can go in there and take some screenshots and write some documentation for the new item editor. So that's my pitch for Dig. Let me pop out to the interface here and show that. Let's see. All right, so I've got two test systems up. So this is the 3.8.0 one. All right, and I was demoing some 3.8 features to my Equinox colleagues this morning on this very same server, and it was riddled with daemons. I have been promised that they have been exorcised, but if things get weird, I apologize. So without further ado, let me pull up some records and show you the Angular volume copy port. All right, well, that's not going well, but that's my fault. Okay, so here is our record. And another bug I would just want to point out real quick that was resolved in 3.8 also while we're here is this Manage Actions menu. Here it went under the Actions. Actually, let me go to Holdings View because that actually has things that you can manage. Manage Actions menu is new in 3.8, and this lets you choose to show or hide action items in the menu. So that I know, especially in this, the cataloger menus are very, very lengthy. So if there are things that you just don't use, you can uncheck those and not show it. That's a new thing in 3.8. So I'm going to add some holdings. And here is the pretty new Angular holding editor. And again, this since a lot of you were involved with this shouldn't be super new. So you add your branches and stuff here. You can add over next to the call number and suffix, you can add a single additional call number, or you can add multiple by pressing that little row and plus button. You can pick how many to add. Same thing with parts. You can add a single part or multiple parts. You can add the barcode. You can generate barcodes if you need to, if you've got that configured. And you'll notice that working and completed is no longer a thing. It's now apply all and save, or apply all, save, and exit. Other thing about this part of the interface is that you can expand these columns if you need to. Then your batch actions is here. It's hidden by default, but you can show it if you want to apply, a different call number label or a different suffix to all of the items in your list. You can do that there. Once you've got these set, you can come over. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. So that just created my holdings. I meant to go over to the items first. and then create the items. So let's add some more of these, add items. All right. So then the second tab is item attributes. For those of you who have been cataloging Evergreen since the old days, this should look pretty familiar. It is an Angular re-implementation of that old Zool-based interface, so it looks a lot like that. There are some behavioral improvements, though, that I think you guys will really like. So in the current item editor, you have to, if you select something like this, where it say there's 3 different values in this field. If you want to change it, you have to change it all to the same value. But now you can selectively pick these and only change certain ones. So let's say I just want to change the BR3 and I want to change that to be BR4. So I do that and it only changes that BR3 to BR4 and it leaves the other 2 untouched. And that you do that by selecting these checkboxes here. So, and you can do that with all of these fields. Some other things, you can now save the template right here from the editor, which is again kind of a harkening back to the old Zool interface. So you can build up your template and you can save it and name it right here and then apply it. It is the local admin holding template editor is still available as well. The preferences have, oh yeah, go ahead, you can lose my changes. Preferences have been moved over here to this tab. You have your display preferences, creation preferences, item attribute settings. And then you can also hide certain item attributes. If there's fields here that you don't use when you're cataloging, you can just hide them from the editor. And that's saved as a workstation setting. I will note that because of the extensive differences between the current AngularJS holdings editor and this version, that you have to recreate your preferences and stuff like that. You cannot carry them over. You'll have to do them anew when you upgrade to this. It's just too different to port over. So let me go back to my slide and make sure I talked about everything.
Andrea, before you go, you have a question from Jennifer Pringle. Can you add multiple barcodes to a call number?
Oh yeah, you sure can. And I can show you that. So here, let's see, if you want to like add another, oh, I thought you could. Why is this not working? Do I have to save it? I thought you could, but it's not working right now. But like I said, this is a haunted demo interface.
Andrea, I think you need to be under barcode and not call number because you want to add barcodes to the call.
Good call. Thank you, Elaine. See, this is why you should have a real cataloger do a cataloging demo and not a pretend cataloger like me. Yes, so there you go there. Mary wants to know if you can show the unified interface. Let's see. I can. So if you want to see the unified interface, you come into the preferences tab here and you do unified holdings and item attributes display, and you can see now this is just one tab. So it's 2 tabs. If it's unchecked, it's 1 tab if it's checked. And then you can see all of this on one screen if you want. So then you've got all your items, call numbers, or your locations call numbers, and then your item editor here at the bottom. So if you prefer to work with that in one screen, you can now do that. So same stuff, just whether it's showing it in one place or 2 places. So let's see. I already made the pitch for cataloger help wanted with the interface. There are no new permissions required to interact with this new editor. Showed you the separate tabs in the same tab. And like I said before, preferences stored in the earlier version. This will not be carried over, but you can recreate them pretty quickly and then they will be saved as a workstation setting. So that, I have a lot of ground to cover. I know I didn't spend a ton of time on that. So if there are no other specific questions about the new volume copy editor, I will move on.
I have a question. This is Elaine. When you say the preferences won't be stored, is it only those holding preferences?
It is, I think these preferences here, like whatever you have set in the current Angular JS for like displaying things and like defaults, are not going to be carried over. So you'll just have to set up this tab the first time you use it.
Okay,
and then it'll
but it's
save
not
it.
preferences anywhere else. It's just on that tab.
Right. And it's just for
Okay.
your thing.
Okay.
Item templates. That is a good question. I'm actually not certain about the item templates. Jennifer Weston, do you know about item templates, or Galen? That's a good question that I don't know the answer to.
I'm not sure either. I have not heard that they are not carried over,
Yeah, I don't
but
recall
that's not
reading.
definitive.
Yeah, I don't recall reading anything warning in the release notes that they weren't carried over, but maybe we can make a note of that and follow up with an answer to that later.
Yeah, I'm 95% sure that they would carry over, but I agree that it bears testing and confirmation.
Okay, thanks, Galen. Yeah, we'll look into that and follow up. Okay. All right. So two other things that I want to talk about real quick in 3.8 are, I'm not going to show these because we have, like I said, lots of other things to go through, but I encourage you to look at these because they're sort of adjacent to cataloger land. One of them is Angular acquisitions. The latest round of Angular acquisitions is administration. And so this renders the Angular admin menu and its options, some of which were already in Angular. It rewrites them all in Angular. And it consolidates several of the existing interfaces, including claims and funds and currencies and exchange rates, all of which were individually, like 9 tabs together or 9 interfaces together, now consolidated into 3, one for each of those. And so that just makes it a little bit easier to work through it. It also did distribution formulas and EDI attribute sets. The other parts of the Angular admin interface were already Angularized. And then there's some lifestyle improvements that went with that as well, including, making it more clear the year and owning library of a specific fund. So now wherever you're looking in the admin interface, you can see, oh, this fund is this year in this library, like right at a glance, right after the short code of the fund. There's some improvements to the fund allocation notes. There's now an active flag for funding sources, and if that active flag is unset, you will not be able to allocate from the funding source. Some styling improvements, including styling negative numbers in red and currency symbols, which previously always displayed as a $sign, regardless of the currency assigned to the fund, are now just removed, and so it just shows numbers. The other big thing, another big thing in 3.8 is consolidate patron notes, alerts, and messages. And this is something that has kind of long been in the works, and I'm glad that it finally got in for 3.8. And this takes notes, alerts, blocks, and messages and system-generated penalties and puts them all kind of in one tab in the patron edit interface and the patron view interface in the staff client. So that will, be a big change for a lot of people. That'll be a big change for a lot of people, and you want to be careful, to make sure you test that when you're upgrading to 3.8 to see that you understand and your staff understands how that changes. It should make things easier to manage, but if you have a very complex penalty situation in your library, it will be complex. So that's just something to be aware of. And there's some upgrade gotchas there that you want to make sure that your system administrator is aware of. Things like changes to permissions, reports, definitions, and auditor tables. And then 2 known bugs, but they are actually actively being worked on. So actually the first one there, the edit visibility of penalties, I'm interested in feedback on. The second one is just straight like, no, we need to fix this. And one of my devs is working on a patch for that right now. Anything? Oh, Elaine says in chat, thank you, Elaine, for this is harkening back to the volume copy editor. Best practice is to save item templates with any upgrade to a new version, just to be safe, and that's a good point. Just in case, if you want to save and export your item templates before you upgrade, doesn't hurt. There are a couple of other 3.8 features and bug fixes that I want to call your attention to. The ones that are highlighted are ones that I'm going to show you here in a minute, and the other ones just be aware of. And again, I'll save these slides so you'll be able to look at all of these when we share this
share the notes. So let me go back to my demo. Nope. Demo. Here we go. All right. So the browse, the first one I listed, had highlighted was the browse paging. So we're going to do a browse search. And I'm going to search for concerto. And this is my browse list. And I'm going to select, let's see, Concerti Grossi. So if you'll notice, this is the second one. The previous one is, oh no, I didn't want a title. I wanted a subject. I'm like, why is this not doing the same thing? All right, there we go. I'm like, I was double second guessing myself because, like I said, I had a haunted demo earlier today, but this was just pure old operator error. Right. So subject browse for concerto. I'm going to select Concerti Grossi, so you can see the heading before that is the composer's Germany, and the heading after that is Concerti Grossi scores. I'm going to click on that. This shows me the 4 records with the Concerti Grossi headings, but also here at the top you can see we can now browse to the next heading or previous heading in that browse list. So if I wanted to see the records associated with that composer's Germany biography heading, I can do that here, or go back to Concerti Grossi, or go to the next heading, etc. So you can now browse that heading list directly from the results list. So that is a cool improvement that I thought catalogers would like. Also, there's been some improvements to the catalog, staff catalog preferences. It's now called search preferences. And that's this button here on the upper right. And there's also been a return button added to it. So you make your changes here and you can click return and it'll take you back to your previous result where you were. The other one I showed you for on my 3.6 list was that edit actions, the actions menu. So you can, in an Angular interface, you can select certain actions to hide if you don't use them a lot to prevent your menus from being cluttered up. And then the last one that I'll show you is the Angular pull list. So over here on circulation pull list, this is now in Angular as well. So that's just a reimplementation of the pull list in Angular. So that's the last 3.8 feature. My browse is insanely fast. Oh yes, this is a tiny little test database. You know, there are things that can be done to improve search speed, certainly, and you know, you can talk to your Evergreen administrator about this, but this is not in any way, shape, or form a real world system. This is a tiny little system with Concerto on it, and it's only looking at a handful of records. So, all right.
And while you're there on the holds pull list, I'd like to point out, I don't know if it was 3.8 or if it came out in the 3.7, but I love that this view hold pull list for, you can now scope it to different libraries.
Yes, that I think was out a little earlier, but I agree, especially as somebody who interacts with test systems a lot, it's really nice to not have to log out and log back into a new workstation. You can see, you know, different pull lists by using this selector up here and changing it. So it will, of course, default when you load the interface, it defaults to the location that your workstation is registered at. So yeah, I feel like this is almost one of those things where, like, you know, I'm not certain how much like real world use that's going to get, but for those of us that navigate around test systems a lot, like that is super duper useful.
Well, and people with bookmobiles too, and they're constantly trying to search for both systems.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Go real world use case. All right. So that was, I think, so the highlighted ones are the ones that I've shown, and there's, you know, all kinds of other fun stuff as well. I do want to call out the staff catalog advanced search filters are now configurable, just to let you know that that's something that that needs to be done by an administrator, but it is a thing that you can do now. So with that, if there are no other questions about 3.8, I will go ahead and move on to the bug fix releases for 3.7.2 and 3.6.5. Anything? Okay. All right. So this is, I'm going to be showing you, oh, how did I end up with an extra bullet point there? We're going to edit the slides live. All right. I'm going to show you a couple of these fixes as well. All of these, so 3.7.2 and 3.6.5 both have a ton of fixes in them. There are, I sort of combined them because they're basically all the ones that I have put on this slide and the next slide are in both 372 and 365, except for this one right here, which I have noted is only in 372. But so I just sort of combine these. So you'll, whether you go up to the next version of 3.6 or the next version of 3.7, you'll get all of these. Like in the previous slide, I will be demoing the highlighted items. Just noting, if you're an Equinox customer, you may already have some of these as hot fixes. So if you are looking at this and think, wait a minute, I already have that, there's a chance that you might, or depending on what your local Evergreen administrator does, some of you also might have these hot fixed on your system, but they're now officially in the release. So I'm going to go to my 3.7 system. Oops, still 3.6. Oh, it's because I had the holdings that are up. You know, I'm just going to close the 3.8 system so I don't confuse myself. And now we're in the 3.7 system. All right. So I am going to, this is the first one, is the show more details. Search for Bartok. This is now available in the staff catalog. I know that was a big request. So you can click show more details and it'll show you holdings and such. Show fewer details, we'll close it. And this is a workstation setting, so it'll remember that. So if I do another search for Bach, it'll remember that I want to see the extra details and it'll show those by default until I click show fewer details. So that is sticky. It'll remember that. Another one that I know I missed in the Angular staff catalog, so I'm happy to see it back, is the jump to catalog on one hit. Go with Penderecki, my favorite one-hit wonder, at least in Concerto. Because a million years ago in college, I actually wrote a paper about this guy. I am bizarrely familiar with some of his work. So it's always funny to me that he's part of Concerto. Anyway, so as you saw when I searched it, it took me directly to the record details, as opposed to giving me one hit in the results list and having to click through. So that is a library setting, which is enabled on this system. But if you want to show the results, you can disable the library setting and it will show you the results list. And I think I just answered, yep. I was reading your minds, Mary. So Mary had asked in chat if it is the optional jump to record, and it is not. It is a library, or it is optional. Yes, it is a library setting that you can set. So another one for bug fix one is the Patron view button. So there used to be in this tab bar, there was a tab that showed Patron view and just showed you kind of the embedded Patron view. But a lot of the stuff didn't work. You know, you didn't show added content or things like that. So you now have Patron view up here as a button in this little button bar. And if I click it, it opens a new tab. It says this page isn't working because demon demos are like my day right now. But eventually it figured itself out. There you go. And it shows you the OPAC view. So it actually takes you, if you look up here in the address bar, it actually takes you into the OPAC in a new tab. So you're looking at your implementation of the OPAC here to see, you know. And if I had added content associated with this, which I do not, it would be visible down here. Does it, the question from Jennifer is, does it just go to the consortium OPAC, or does it know based on workstation what individual OPAC to show? That is another really good question that I am not certain of the answer to. So if I'm in here, it does know, you know, kind of what org level we're at from here. But when I clicked out, it didn't seem to carry any of that over. So that's something that I would actually have to test, unless somebody knows off the top of their head whether it's smart enough to scope it on the link out. But that is another thing that we will have to test and get back to you about. Sure. Let's see, I lost myself in my notes. We did OPAC visible. Oh, grid preferences. So on the, oh, Mary, my original search scope was just consortium. So, I mean, I guess we could, here, let's try it live. Why not? But I'm going to, actually open a new tab because I want to do other things in this record. So, oops, here we go. So let's scope it to just BR1 and search for something else. So it looks like it does not scope it. And you can see that, it did not carry any like limiters over with it. Like you can see here, it would have been org equals 4, which is BR1. So that's in the staff catalog, it knows the limiter, but in the OPAC, it does not carry that over. So I'm not certain if that's something that can be configurable, but that might be something like to test and follow up with on maybe a wish list bug. Let me move this. The go-to meeting controls are always like in my way, no matter where they are. Okay, so that my sense would be then the answer to that question is no, it does not carry it over. It does not carry the scoping over, so that might be a good follow-up bug if further testing shows that that is indeed the case, other than my really quick and dirty testing here. So let's see, back to this Penderecki record. I'm gonna go here, looking here at the item table. You can now save grid preferences here. So if you add and remove columns, it can now be saved, and it will save it. If you do save grid settings, that will now persist if you leave and come back to this interface. Before that was not available. So if I removed a couple columns, if I go to a different tab, then come back to this tab, it remembers that I had removed that active create date and barcode column. If I put them back, save it again. So I put the barcode back, go to a different tab, come back, it remembers that now. So that's new. That did not have working save grid columns prior. I will note that this course one, you can also drag them. I think that was already a thing though. This course column here, I had noted in some internal testing of something else that there was some buggy behavior with this course one where it was not honoring the grid setting, the grid saving. So you can remove that and save your setting. And then when you reload this interface, its course is right back there, like, a zombie column. It's on my list to kind of test that a little more and file a follow-up bug, since that does not seem to be honoring the column picker saving. But that's a very, very minor thing, just one of those things that comes up. Does anyone ever count how much white space there is? That's preferences. I kind of like the white space. I'm sure that the other people don't. It is a lot more scrolling. Your administrator might be able to configure that to make it a little less weird. Lack of hotkeys. Hotkeys actually still exist. Not all of them, but like the standard F key shortcuts and some others. Is it Control ? Or Control H? There we go. So in an Angular interface, if you do Control H, it shows you this list of hotkeys here. So these are the ones that function within the staff client. So so some of the hotkeys do still exist. Okay. Mary says she wishes the down arrow that makes the rows 2 lines would be sticky. Yeah, that actually sounds like that could be a good wish list bug. Okay, so another improvement here for in the 372 and 365 is here in Mark Edit. There is now, ta-da, a source field. Now, the one tricksy thing about this is that some of you have surely noticed that modern browsers have very, very sticky caches, and sometimes that causes problems when you have new interface elements, because the browser wants to hold on to the old interface and is not so good at showing the new interface elements. I've noticed that for whatever reason, this one is particularly persnickety. So if that's not showing up after you upgrade, just know that that's likely a cache issue, and it will, you can go in and manually delete some things from your cache if you want, or you can wait and it hopefully will eventually catch up. But that source field is now available. I know that was something that was kind of long desired to be restored to this interface. So, ta-da. Mary, I'm not sure what you mean. This one comes up empty. That might. I have not seen that. Has anyone else seen that? I will admit to not using this field super terribly often. Okay. Well, that might be another bug worth filing. If anyone else has seen it, you know, chime in the chat. Maybe we can get one of those famous cataloging interest group bug reports that's filed and immediately has 8,000 heat because everyone's like, oh yeah, me too, which is 100%, by the way, a compliment for you guys. Like, not every group in the community does that. Like, you guys are great at doing that and making sure that things that need attention get attention. And a lot of these improvements that I'm showing here are directly attributable to things that catalogers, you know, agitated for. So good job with that. Okay, so another one is delete queue. So I'm going to go to mark batch import export. And this was when you were in inspect queue, the delete queue just didn't do anything. And I have to kind of apologize to my Equinox colleagues who are on the call with me. This is an in-house sandbox, and I didn't realize it, but I was just sort of grabbing batches of records out of that I have like on my computer, and I definitely put like 100 Neil Gaiman records into this small test system. There's now 100 extra Neil Gaiman records in the system that started with like 250 records. So my bad. Or as my boss said the other day, I'm flinging sand in the sandbox. So that's what sandboxes do. Anyway, so to delete the queue, I'm gonna go in here. There's also 10 extra Terry Pratchett records. So these have actually already been imported, and it's this button here that wasn't doing anything. So I'm going to delete the queue, confirm, and you can see the queue has actually deleted. So yay. The records aren't deleted because the records were already imported. It's just deleting the queue if you want to clean up your queue. So, oh yeah, Mary. Mary's gonna, yeah, Mary, please share that bug number so other people can get on that. Cool. Then one more thing that I'm going to show you, because I want to definitely leave time for questions, and if you have any other things you want me to real quick try to live demo, I can, but is in manage authorities. This was discovered that I think CW Mars is actually loading an authority file with an extensive 667 or 670 rather, and it crashed things. So I actually took the very record which my colleague Galen Charlton kindly posted on Launchpad Bug, and I imported it directly into this system. So you can see this authority record. It was this one, Ehrenberg, Elia, and that now you can see this record, authority record, imported and loaded just fine, whereas before that, I believe it caused an entire authority upload to fail because of this one record and its admittedly prodigious 670 field, which is right here. So that has now, if you encounter any other, and I think Elaine made the very good point on the Launchpad bug that perhaps the LC name authority file should maybe fix that 670 field. But in case,
Andrea,
yeah.
this is Elaine. I talked to actually OCLC and expect more 670s like this. They copy and the entire, I think it's Wikidata screen, and there's no formatting. It's just the entire dump, and they consider it fine.
Okay.
So
it's a good thing this bug got fixed then.
Yes, because I expect more like this. I said, could you at least make it a little more user friendly? And I didn't get any response to that.
Yeah, because this is just like, and you can see where there's different like kinds of information in this field that are just sort of all in one big long text string. So, well, thank you, Elaine, for trying to fight the good fight with that. But So the moral of the story is they're not going to change it. And so it's a good thing that these extensive 670 fields will no longer cause your authorities to fail on import. So you want more keywords, you shall have them anyway. Let's see, there was a couple of things that popped up. Copy queue to bucket. Yeah, that was also fixed in, yes, it was fixed in 372 and 378. I can show that, but let me just double check that I'm doing this right. Okay. So let's show that. I can totally show that. So let's go back here to the mark batch importer. Nope, not mark batch edit. Mark batch importer. I'm going to come over here. Let's look at my, maybe I should use Jennifer's queue. No, that's just one. Am I feeling brave? This is 100 items. Let's see if it works on a 100 item queue. So I'm going to click copy queue to bucket. I'm going to give it a new bucket. I can not type. Add to new bucket. Let's see if it worked. So we're going to copy record buckets. AVN records. Hey, look at that. There, as you can see, it's 100 items. It's got all of my 100 Neil Gaiman titles that I inadvertently added to this test system. So copy queue to bucket is also now fixed. So I think that was one that was another certainly on the cataloger list for sure. So those were all of the ones that I had prepared demos for the to show you. I have listed, they're listed on this slide, and then on this slide specific cataloging. So I split them from Angular staff catalog fixes to cataloging fixes, but I showed them to you all. Some of these I can't very easily demo, but if there's other things that you want me to show, or if you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them. I know there's a couple to look into and follow up on, but anything else that anyone wants to see or ask about with 365, 372, or 38. And while you're thinking about that, I do just want to say, you know, that like I said before, a lot of these improvements, all these changes are things that catalogers have asked for, agitated for, organized about, given feedback on, like, this is how things get fixed in an open source community, and you guys are really great at doing that. And so these are the fruits of a lot of people's labor, but you guys should definitely include yourself among the people that helped get these things done. So, all right, I'm not seeing anything in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share. Like I said, I will make sure that Jennifer gets the link to my slides so that they can be shared. Oh, sorry, Janet, I missed. Copy only records with matches in a queue to a bucket. Multiple queues with both duplicate matches. Oh yeah, no, that's a good, yeah, that's not something I've ever thought about, but that's actually a really good potential use case. Now I'm like sort of looking at, yeah, because you can show records with matches, or you can show, you know, records with errors, but you know, when you can export non-imported records, but you know, you can only just copy queue, and it just copies the whole queue regardless of what's matching and what's not. Yeah, that sounds like a fantastic wish list bug that it sounds like a couple people in the catalogers group would definitely give you some heat on that. So, oh, and Mary found her bug ticket for the Angular Mark Editor tab. So if anyone is also experiencing that, please add heat or you know, comments, screenshots, any other information you can add to that. It's helpful. Okay, Jennifer, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you so very much. This is wonderful. And it was a great tour of all of the biggest parts of the changes that we're going to see as catalogers. Excellent, Andrea. Thank you. will share widely. I did want to make a note. You should be seeing my screen again here. I'm back on the agenda. I've added the link that Mary provided. And Janet, if you submit a Launchpad bug for your suggestion there, that's really great. Let us know. If you'll send that to the Evergreen listserv, catalogers listserv, that would be great. I also wanted to back up the conversation about keyboard shortcuts, that they are still available with the Control H, but only on pages that have been updated to Angular. So there's a Launchpad bug out there that's advocating for adding those shortcuts back to the navigation menus so that people know they exist. So if you want to add heat to that one or add comments to that one, I would appreciate that as well. Several of us have done that already, but that's there under our last section there. And as always, if you have any bugs at all that you want to draw attention to, that's what the listserv's there for catalogers. And as Andrea said, and I would like to echo, thank you to everybody who not only participates in identifying those bugs, but taking time to write them up, to test them, or to just add comments. That's what it takes to let people know about the functionality we're seeing, and about the functionality that would make your life a little easier, and just start that process. Anybody else, when we have a few minutes, have another bug they just want to toss out here that you'd like to put in the notes for posterity to draw attention to? Please just add that to the chat. Or I will clean up the meeting notes. I will leave the meeting notes document. Yeah, Nicole has one. Yeah, Kate, sure, please go ahead. While you're looking for those, I'm just going to say that the link that I sent out to the agenda, everybody should have the ability to edit it. So if we don't get to everything today, or you think of something later today you want to add to that list, please do know that you can do that there too. I usually leave it open as a document that can be edited for a week or so. So let's see, while we're waiting anxiously, what else we're going to pop in here.
I'm just adding the 2 follow-up questions.
Excellent. Fantastic. And we'll just do follow-up to the listserv too. Meanwhile, I'm going to fix Mary's note here. Okay, we've got one from Jennifer Pringle about cataloging serials. Let me see if I open this, if you'll see it. Yep, there it is. Newly created manual for the, does not display in the issues held section. And that started in 3.5, it looks like. So if you're working on 3.5 or anything after that, if you want to test that out and add notes to it, that's a great one. It's a great one to find and to address. Thanks, Jennifer. And I'm going to just follow these as they came in. Let's look at Kate's. All of these will go in the notes. Functionality to share import queue. I don't even have to read the description. Absolutely, I would love to be able to share an import queue. Much like sharing buckets. Since they have a QID number, it would be very, very nice to do that. Look, everybody thinks so. We all agree. I'm going to put a note in there after this. Everybody agrees. Nobody disagrees with that. Thank you, Kate. All right, Mary, is there any way we can centrally set up those volume copy editor preferences in 3.8? We'll follow up on that, Mary, but I'm going to guess, since they're saved locally, that's not possible. But
yeah, my hunch is probably not, but we can look into that.
Yeah. And Nicole, here we go. The staff link is missing the more links on the side of listings. Let's see here. Angular staff catalog, no link missing from facets. The facets in the Angular staff catalog are missing the more link, which allows staff to see the more default than 5. Oh, that's curious. In 3.7, looks like that's the first time it was seen was in 3.7, so that's interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen that either, but I haven't gone looking for it. So and it's been confirmed. Jennifer Pringle's made note of that too. Michelle, okay, fantastic. Yeah, I understand, Mary. I have enough trouble in 3.5. Yeah, it's interesting. It is tough to get everyone to follow your recommendations, even when it's very good for them and those system preferences. All right, Jennifer, you didn't see it in 3.5, but you're using the traditional catalog at the time. Yeah, I think we still have we can go backwards and test. The important thing to know is, well, I guess anybody out there that's using 3.5 or 3.6, if you can test out what you're seeing in the Angular staff catalog and respond to that, would be great. I'll dig around a little too. Yeah, Mary, we did. Yeah, being able to save. I don't even know, going back to the being able to centrally set up those preferences, if it's something we could export and import, might be nice too, like templates, but at the least. Okay, let's see. Irene. Hi, Irene. Quick receive missing from serials menu. Oh, yeah. I remember seeing this one. That goes back to 3.5. Yeah, so when the Angular came along, there are only 2 choices now. And Jane's looked into that about ways it might be fixed. Okay, yeah, let's keep that on the radar. And Jennifer, thank you for noticing that that's a regression bug too that perhaps we can look into for serials. Thanks for bringing that back to us, Irene. Okay, Jennifer Prinkle, you didn't see it in 3.5. Okay, that's good to know. Put a pinport where it changed. Yeah, Irene, well, then it's still there on 3.7. I hope otherwise 3.7 is going good for you, Irene. Like I said, I didn't capture all of them on the notes just yet, but I will. Here in the next, I'll update here the Cataloger Community Forum area with all of these bugs we just listed, so they're there. Yeah, I think it was on 3.6. The reason we didn't upgrade for a long time. Oh, thank you, Chrissy. Any other bug anybody else wants to draw attention to while we're together? Our last opportunity to do it as a group this year. We can certainly do it on email. Just going to grab these one by one. If I miss any, I will go back through the chat notes that are saved with the video recording, which will be up tomorrow. I'm not going to commit to doing that today. Okay, well then we've got 2 minutes for me to revisit my call for volunteers. If you'd like to be part of the organizing committee, please, please, please let me know. We would love to have you. And then anything that you want to highlight for the year in review, just let me know as well. And I will keep this list of bugs going out here so that when I send out the note that the recording's ready, I will make sure I draw attention to these as well to say the agenda has notes on there too. I just want to say thank you again to Andrea for an excellent presentation. A lot to look forward to. I do have a question here from Nicole before we end, not bug related, but when we expect to be upgraded. You'll just have to talk to your system administrator and your consortium management team there to find out for sure when you might be updated to 3.7. I'm afraid I can't answer that right now, but we'll put you in touch with the right people to do that. Jennifer, if you do have staff using both traditional and new catalog, don't use holds in the traditional. They always use the contact details for the staff member for the hold notification. That is very good advice.
I thought there was a setting about that, but I might be conflating versions, so don't take my word for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to take a note of that too, Andrew. We'll add that to our list to follow up on. Just to confirm that we too see that behavior. Okay, I know that we always feel like we keep talking forever, but the hour is up. Thank you all so very, very much for everything all year long. Thanks one more time to Andrea and to Galen for being here to answer our questions. And I wish all of you a wonderful, happy holiday season, and we will see you in January.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.